Lich King versus Thrall.
Blood and thunder.
So what the f happened with this?
One thing I never had on the bingo card for 2025 is Ready or Not being downvote brigaded by their own community.
Oh.
At a time during the Steam summer sale where Ready or Not is 50% off on Steam, you'd think we'd see a lot more eyes on their title leading up to their console launch on July 15th. And for transparency's sake, I have a pending deal with Ready or Not to celebrate their console launch. They wanted me to jump in.
For him.
That was going to be some sponsored content for Void Interactive. And as you guys can now see from this chart, things aren't looking very good. It seems like for the last few days,
people went crazy
people
on
are getting
this.
a little pissed off. Articles being written about how
controversial shooter Ready or Not drops to mixed reviews as community slams dev for censorship.
First-person shooter Ready or Not drops to mixed reviews as community slams the developers for censorship. What does this all mean? Let's talk about it. Ready or Not will be censored before launching on consoles, and it could even affect the PC version. Now, this article was published 2 days ago. It has now been confirmed this is happening to the PC version as well. And we're just gonna go to the source here and read through what's actually going on. Console rating content changes. Throughout the console port process, we've done our utmost to only make changes when they're flagged as absolutely required by our first-party partners. Our age rating as it stands for consoles is ESRB M rating, PEGI 18, USK 18 to give an idea. Still, there are other game content requirements that console platforms have in order to exist on their systems, and a portion of these changes will be visible on the PC version. And
see, that's what's gonna piss people off, right? Is like if you're getting your game censored just to make Sony happy, of course that's gonna make the player base mad. If you look at it from the perspective of a PC player, your game is now being changed because of something that has nothing to do with you in order for the company to make more money. Yeah, obviously they'd be fucking mad. Like, I mean, you take away the reason and you take away the purpose and you just say, we're changing the game entirely in order to make it more accessible for consoles. Yeah, and we're gonna censor it because of that. That would make anybody mad.
Instead of jumping into that, they go in and explain the reasons why. There are two main reasons that these limited asset changes may be visible on the PC version as well. Maintaining multiple versions of the game with different assets and system mechanics increases the likelihood of bugs to appear in future updates. So because this game is cross-platform when it comes to consoles, things have to have parity. If the in-game assets were not the same, it would make crossplay unusable. And because people want crossplay, both games have to remain the same.
That's true.
So what does that mean? It means we're losing a lot of gore and dismemberment. Player-induced dismemberment still has a large presence in the game, but is a little more limited.
I heard that Japan's perspective on dismemberment is a little bit more conservative than ours. That's at least my understanding about it. I could be wrong. And I think there's always the historical example that a lot of people know about that's famous, really, that in World of Warcraft, they're not allowed to show skeletons or bones. And so they have people, whenever they die, they put a tombstone down instead.
When it occurs.
That's China.
When a live enemy is shot, they can undergo dismemberment. However, once
I thought that dismemberment was also seen as problematic in Japan also. I could be wrong.
You're dead, no further dismemberment occurs. Note, the level of dismemberment itself, when it occurs, was not actually toned down. Ultimately, we consider this an okay compromise considering our gameplay design already dissuades use of lethal force anyway. So if you have somebody on the ground, you shoot them with a shotgun, and when they're already dead, they're no longer being dismembered. Lastly, some characters' art involving torture were tuned down slightly to be less over the top. For example, the tortured police informant on Narcos is still missing fingers, eyes, and covered in fresh wounds, blood, but a little bit less so. So it's just been toned down. Just slightly. Plus, some instances of explicit nudity for a handful of civilians and one suspect have been covered up a bit more. Can't show titties. It's consoles, they're babies. Explicit representations of violence and mistreatment against children. Although we already make a substantial effort to present mistreatment against children in the game in a responsible way, we made slight thematic expansions of this philosophy in order to better meet certification standards. For example, the child on Twisted Nerve has an animation change to be unconscious or sleeping instead of previously convulsive animations. So remember that kid in the top floor of Twisted Nerve who was like convulsing on the bed because she was left by her parents, probably induced something we didn't really know. That's no longer the case. This is the same team that's staring down the barrel of a gun from all of the media journalists who were shitting on them for creating a school shooter level. They came down and said, fuck that, we're gonna do it with respect, we're gonna do it right, and we're gonna do it whether you like it or not.
I think this is a really good parallel, which is the Baldur's Gate 3 bear sex scene. People don't really care about whether you can have sex with a bear in Baldur's Gate 3, but it represents a level of creative and artistic freedom that makes people think that they're really playing a art piece and they're playing something that has escapism rather than something that's made for a mass audience or made for commercial appeal. And I think that when you have games that exercise censorship in these ways, what happens is that the game loses that sense of escapism and authenticity. And I think that's really kind of the parallel that I'm drawing between these two circumstances. Art, well, yeah. And so like, and I'm just using this as a broad term, but what I mean is that, like, for example, this is just me, but when I see a video game and it's using something that's different than male or female, I immediately think to myself, oh my God, it's one of those again. Oh geez, it's one of these like weird games where it's like some weirdo made this game and they want to make it like, and so it takes me out of the game because I'm thinking to myself, I'm not thinking about being part of the game world anymore. I'm thinking about the game world being inauthentic at this point because it's being created in order to push a certain narrative. Elden Ring had body types though. I didn't say it's a make it or break it. I just said I don't like it. I didn't say I hate every game that has that, but I mean, I think it was stupid when Elden Ring did it too. I don't understand your point. Like, yeah, and so immersion is key. Yeah, and so that's really my point of doing real life cause because and also it breaks the immersion. So I think that's the reason why people are unhappy about this is that they view that this game is it's made in a certain way and it's really brutal. It's super gory. Like, for example, like think about a movie like Fight Club or Sin City or something like that. That's like a really brutal, gory movie, or like 300. And then think about how much it would be, how annoying it would be if it got censored or toned down in order to appeal to another group of people. I think that's what's frustrating for a lot of people about this. It's not even necessarily the content itself. It's what the changes of the content represent, which is the fact that you're having your game be altered away from the developer's original vision because of a publisher trying to exercise censorship and control over that game. Now, whether you think that's fair or not, that doesn't really matter. I think it's very evident that there's a lot of people that don't like that. Berserk is a good example. Yeah, and like Berserk, there's a number of examples, you know, like obviously like the Eclipse example with Casca, and then also you have, you know, Guts as a child. These are very important parts of the story, and if they were taken out of the story, I would be upset as a fan of Berserk. Does that mean that you like that kind of content? No, but it means that you value the authenticity of an author's work and you don't want to see it be censored by a third party that is trying to exercise creative control. And I think that's kind of what's really happening here. It's not about the changes specifically, it's about why they're happening.
But when you have platforms that are telling you that you need to change the contents of your game to be less violent, to be less explicit, to show less titties or whatever, you got to play by their rules. The changes with the console version are small enough that most people here wouldn't notice if we didn't say anything, but we want to be
Just as a child, you mean Griffith? Both. Look it up.
transparent. It's largely just evidence and nudity that's altered, and the texture changes don't affect the PC version. In conclusion, they're looking forward to their console launch and relieved to be fully finished with all of their console launch certification processes. And as you probably know already, this has pissed off a lot of people. The first comment on this post is huge respect for creating one of the standout games in its genre and keeping the experience alive and thriving years after release. I gotta say, on one hand, I actually agree, and as you can see, the clown emojis are being thrown out. You're censoring the game.
Yeah, that's just people that don't like them. Yeah.
Not a fan. These ones are getting upvoted. Loving the new animations, but toning down the graphic themes of the game is a bit questionable. I actually agree. It's one of the main reasons why we all got excited about this game.
I don't think that, like, and this is another thing that a lot of people might not really understand, is that I think that in a lot of cases, a game like this, a tactical shooter game where you're going in and killing people and like holding them down with a shotgun and blowing their face off. Do you want to know who plays those games? Young guys, teenage guys, like the ages of 13 to 40-year-old men. That is, in my opinion, probably like 98% of the game's audience. Guys like that don't want to have their game censored in order to appeal to an audience that doesn't even want their game. That's the reason why. It's literally just guys. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is that they're removing and toning it down in order to make the game more agreeable with consoles. And I think that the reason why PC players are upset about this is because now the PC version of the game is being affected too. So now you bought this game and now your game is being changed because of because of a console. Of course that's going to make you mad.
Back in 2017,
because kids,
when we first started seeing these concepts come to life, the school shooter level.
Like, I don't think anybody criticizes Blizzard for making a Chinese version of WoW where they don't show corpses, because it's not in the actual like Western version. But when you have whenever you force, like, for example, if the Chinese version of the game was forced on all players, I think you'd see people be very frustrated.
So like concept trailer where they showed the officers opening up the shipping container and there were kids in there being trafficked and you rescue them. Those themes are what sold us on the game in the first place. And like this person points out, it was either that, the censoring of the game, or they get an adults only rating, which is basically commercially non-viable. So here we are. We're sitting here at the cusp of a console release, and we have people now downvoting the game because they're not a fan of the censorship that is inevitably going to be coming to the PC version of the game. Now, here's the thing. For the console crowd, if there wasn't cross-play and they wanted to downtone it, like, it is what it is. The fact that
I don't think people would really care if they toned it down on the console-only version and the PC version wasn't changed.
Have already purchased the game, most likely based on some of those themes that you guys show off in the screenshots, in the trailers, and in videos that we have already made on this channel in the past. The fact that that now is being changed after a purchase for somebody